Vampires. You need guns. Lots of guns. Unlock dozens of upgrades. New hunters. And wield the ultimate weapon. Vampire Hunters. Wishlist now.
All right. What is up, everybody? Kazdan is on here for Crafts Productions with Thiago from Gamecraft Studios. We are on part 2 of the interview. I'm so glad to have you guys back. Thiago, how are you doing?
I'm great. Great to be back. Looking forward to talk more with you and with your community. Yeah.
So first off, thank you. And second of all, I'm sure everyone else here is also excited for that as well. So in the last interview, we briefly talked about one of your games that you might be porting over to the Atari VCS. There's a lot of interest that your company has taken into the Atari VCS. And as a result, that's kind of what we're here to talk about. Talk about your games, what your company does, all that stuff. So give a quick brief rundown of how you started again, and then we'll get into a few more of the newer questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So first of all, if someone is looking, where is your games? Where can I find them? You can go to our website, gamecraftstudios.com, and you can see everything there, or entering our Steam, Gamecraft Publisher, you can also find the games, because I think that taking a look on our games, it's an easy way to have an idea of what I'm talking about here. So getting back on our story, and I think that it's really cool, because as I mentioned, I'm from Brazil, and it's different from America. I think that game development have been going on in America for years, years, and in Brazil it's something that it's starting in 2010. But I think we did have developers before that, but it was one or two, and after 2010 we started to ramp up more developers. So 2010 I was in high school, and for me, I always had the dream of becoming a game developer. But for me, I had to go to United States, or I had to go to Europe or Canada. I had to leave Brazil. I didn't know if it was possible to create games in Brazil and to be an independent developer. That wasn't a thing yet. So that's why I decided to go in computer science in college, and so I can learn programming, and then I can move to another country and start making games. That's something that I've always wanted. But during the college, I participated in a Brazil game show. There was a huge exhibit show here in São Paulo. It's the biggest city in Brazil.
Okay.
And the main thing about the Brazil game show was to showcase AAA games, right? But they had a small corner there of indie games, of indie developers from Brazil. And I've heard about that, and I was like, what the fuck? There are Brazilian people making games. I didn't know about that. So I went there and started talking to them. That was 2013. And I figured that there are people making games in Brazil and releasing worldwide. And that blew my mind. And I think, what? I can develop my games here in Brazil. So that's why we started, Helios's Hunt. It gave us more power, because we knew that we can release the game. But of course, as I talked in part 1, we started making the games with not a lot of, ideas of, we're gonna be on console, we'll become a company before that, after that. We didn't have this all planned. We just wanted to start creating a bigger game, because I knew that it was possible. So it was really, really awesome. And then everything is history. Yeah. So it's cool to give a little background, because it's different from people from different countries, right? Here in Brazil, it's a big country, and everything is developing really fast. But the game industry is really, really, it's a baby comparing to what you guys have in America.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because as Americans, we tend to kind of forget that certain regions don't have the luxuries that we do. And that's not to obviously put one country over the other, or none of that negative stuff. But Brazil in particular has had a relatively I don't want to say odd, but we're going to say odd history with video games. There of course were the Sega Genesis knockoffs and reproduction cartridges, the Zebo. Who remembers the Zebo? That was something. Like, they had their own version of Resident Evil 4, and the zombies were like blue. Have you ever played on a Zebo?
No, I didn't.
Oh my God. I remember when it came out, and I knew that it was a Brazilian only console, and I wanted one as a kid. I was like, I like the way the controller looks, and then the console flopped, unfortunately. I think there was like 46 or 47 games. I might have that number incredibly wrong, but there wasn't very many games that were released on it. It was a digital only console.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Brazil obviously, has a really strong history where video games wasn't very common.
There are a lot of people playing games here. I think that Brazilians love playing games. That's really, really awesome.
So with your background and having these struggles trying to get video games off the ground and stuff, especially in Brazil. What statements would you say to anybody who wants to develop, or maybe somebody who is like right down the road from you, or halfway across Brazil who may also want to develop games as well? What advice would you give them?
Awesome. So nowadays we are in a perfect time to start developing games. I mean, as I mentioned, like 15 years ago, it was a little bit different for the whole. For the whole world, because indie games were starting, right? So, and I think that changed a lot because before indie games, it was way harder to start a company, right? So because you had to distribute the games worldwide, so you needed money. I mean, how can you sell the game in Europe without having a lot of money to print the games in the CDs, right, and distribute that?
Right.
So in the game, so I mean the whole digital distribution helped that a lot. So nowadays you just have to start making a game, right? And that's what blew our mind back in 2013. And I think that it changed the entire economy of making games. So nowadays, what I suggest, I mean, there are a lot of people that come to our offices and asking those questions because there are a lot of people that dreams of becoming a game developer. So what I say is, start making your game, right? So there is no secret. I mean, you can go to Udemy, YouTube, everywhere. There are a lot of knowledge that you can use to start developing the game. And making a game, make a small game, because as I mentioned, Eliosis Santos was 3.5 years. Of course, it was really cool to release the game, but if the game was smaller and we were able to release it before, I think that we would learn more with a smaller interaction. Then we could increase the game's potential, right? So the idea, the suggestion that I give to people is start making your game and start publishing your games, right? There is itch.io, there is Steam. I mean, you have to pay Steam Direct, and you can put your game on Steam. There will be in the same store that AAA sells. So it's really cool to have that. And of course, that we do have some success case that people, I mean, exploded in their first game, but that's not what usually happens. So you have to keep trying, and keep making games, right? And you're going to keep improving your ability of making better games, and you're going to start knowing more people, so you can increase your network, so you can start co-developing with other companies. That's what we're doing right now. So I mean, it's really cool. I mean, the path is clear, but you need a lot of resilience because it's not easy. But it's a really awesome path. I mean, what happened here? I mean, we published our video, and you guys found it, and then we found a different community looking to play our games. I mean, that's why we do it. It's really, really cool.
Excuse me. Sorry. I appreciate your enthusiasm towards this entire thing. Where do some of your inspirations come from as far as your games and the route that your company is taking?
Okay, cool. So when I was young, I used to play. I used to play a lot of games. I had a PlayStation, so I didn't have Atari. I didn't have a Nintendo. A lot of people my age had Nintendos, but I had PlayStations. So I had PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. So I play a lot of PlayStation games, and I also had a computer. So I played some online games. And one that really, marked me was Tibia. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tibia, but it's a game that was it's a game from Cipsoft. It's a German company, and there are a lot of Brazilians and people from Poland playing the game. I think that's because it's a pixel art game. It's a MMORPG, but it's pixel art. So
what's it called?
Tibia.
Tibia?
Tibia. Yeah.
Like the bone?
Like the bone, exactly.
Okay.
Like the bone. Yeah.
All right, I'll look it up.
So I mean, there were just a few Americans playing Tibia, and it was a popular game. I mean, they had, I think that they picked 60,000 people playing simultaneously. But I mean, there were a lot of, undeveloped country because we didn't need a lot of internet band to play the game because it was pixel art. But it was a really awesome game. I mean, they had this whole fantasy. It was like World of Warcraft, but they have a few differences. And I think that it really formed me as a developer. And Legend of You is a game that, of course, it's based on Ultima mainly, but there are a lot of things on Tibia, and especially the graphics. I mean, the pixel art is an isometric graphic. It comes from Ultima, that and Tibia. I think Tibia based on Ultima, and we were based on both Tibia and Ultima. And I really enjoyed this RPG thing. And of course, the roguelikes, they come together with the RPG, because I think that these skills and elements that change the gameplay really makes the games more engaging. And my dream as a developer is creating bigger games and better games that more people play. So that's where I am right now. I mean, we are crafting our company, crafting Gamecraft, to be more experienced as game developers, to make bigger games, better games. So one day everybody knows about us, and everybody's expecting to play our games. I mean, that's my dream, and that's a little bit of my background.
So, what is one thing that you want consumers of your products to take away from the company ultimately?
Okay, so I think that the main thing is we love making games because we are gamers. So I think that nowadays there are a little bit of there are games that you don't find a lot of love in the game. So when I started Gamecraft with my brother, was only my brother and I. As I mentioned in part one, we had TDZ games. I think that Elios and there were 10 people developing the game with us. Then we stopped for 2 years. We had different companies in different areas. That was good because we learned a lot. And when we started Gamecraft, it was only my brother and I for 2 years, and we developed for Sparta, Rogue Summoner. And what we used to say about Gamecraft was two brothers making games for people to play and love. Now we are really, I mean, we have 20 people here making game with us, and everybody that is here with us, they share this this love of making games. I mean, for someone to enter Gamecraft, I always seek for the love, right? I have to feel if the person also loves making games. So when I think that when a game is developed like this, I think it can transport to the player. And I think that nowadays we don't have a lot of games like that. I mean, we do have some excellent games, but I think that they may miss a little bit of that, and that's what we're looking for, right? So we want to people to feel that this game was really made for them to enjoy that and to create and to improve their lives with fun, right? With entertainment. That's the idea. Yeah.
So in part one, we also mentioned a few other companies that are not companies, but a few other games that you guys have worked on that were are currently owned by other companies.
Yeah.
Cobra Kai, something.
Hextech
The one that was,
Mayhem.
yep, and that one was made
The
for.
2111 Mars. That's a Brazilian company that we co-developed called Kill You Bite. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about working with those companies specifically. How does it feel to have your name partnered with some big brands like League of Legends and Cobra Kai and so on and so forth?
Awesome. Yeah, so it's really cool because as I mentioned, my brother and I, we started developing games really young. So we didn't work on another game company. So I mean, the only company that we worked on was our company. And of course that nowadays we can, I mean, meet a lot of people and have a lot of knowledge, but I think that we spend a lot of time developing the games our own way, right? So when we started to co-develop with other companies, and parentheses here, of course, that we needed to make games before to showcase our ability to make games. So I think that as the question that you asked before in the beginning of this part was, what tips do you give? And that's why that I said you have to keep making games, because once you have a portfolio, other companies can find you and you can co-develop with them. So that's what happened to us. So when we had mainly the Elios Sons to prove our ability, and other companies got interested to develop with us, it was amazing because we learned what other companies, more experienced companies, do. And I mean, we worked with, I mean, companies from all over the world, for Brazilian companies, American companies, European companies, and we had only amazing experience because we learned a lot. And each company have different pipelines and process to make games. And I think that it improved a lot us as game developers. But of course, that there are a few companies that there's a bigger synergy. And an example of that is Choice Provisions. That's a company based on California. And they are the one that developed Hextech Mayhem. So we helped them porting Hextech Mayhem to mobile, because it was mainly a PC and Nintendo Switch game that they decided to port on mobile because of Netflix games. So they hired us. They didn't know a lot about us. They found us in a very cool way, but they hired us to help them like that. But we really, I think that we really hit because they also love making games. They are more experienced. I mean, there are people there that work on LucasArts and stuff like that, and they're older than us. But they really shine the love of making games, and they saw that on us too. So we partnered up as co-developing. So right now we are co-developing with them 2 other games, and we're handling the entire programming stuff of the game, and they're handling art, design, and it's really cool because once you start to work with different companies, there are some, it's just like a relationship, right? There are some that hits better, and our synergy with them, it's amazing because they share this love just like us. Of course that the other companies do too, but there are some cases that I don't know why, but it just hits. And that's what happened to Choice Provisions, and we are currently developing 2 games with them that they are unannounced yet, so I can't talk about it. But it's amazing games, and we are really looking forward to share them with the world too.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Could you maybe close the door? Cool. All right. Thank you. Okay, so why did it get dark over here all of a sudden? There it goes. Okay, so you made a statement that I think stands out most of all out of everything that you said. You said you get a chance to learn what bigger companies do. And I think for independent developers or not necessarily independent developers, but young developers who are just getting into the field and really dipping their toes in the water, I think that's actually very important to hear because you don't hear smaller companies talking about that. You know, there's a lot of ego in video game companies, and yet there's also a lot of humbleness as well. It depends on everyone's backgrounds and so on. But it's interesting that you say that specifically because being able to have that statement here and it come from the heart might also inspire somebody else who's watching for video game development. And I know that there's a few indie developers who watch these interviews, so I just wanted to say thank you for saying that. Um,
There's one thing that it's really cool. As I mentioned before, the whole game industry in Brazil, it's really young. Of course, there are few people that developed games like 30 years ago, but it's really rare to see them, and most of them are not in Brazil anymore. So everybody all the other companies here, they are run by people that are my age or just a little bit older or a little bit younger. So I'm accustomed, maybe before co-developing with other companies, I was accustomed of seeing developers of my age. So I mean, everybody's young, right? Everybody that makes games are young. So when we started co-developing with other companies, we started seeing people that are old. I mean, they're 50 years old, 60 years old. And I mean, it was awesome for us because I don't know, I'm talking to someone that has all this experience. And I mean, since they are young, they're making games. It's crazy because it's different. It's not something that we were used to. So it's really cool to see when we talk to other companies and there are people in the company that have been making games for 40 years and 50 years. And it's really cool. I mean, my brother and I, we really share this humbleness, I think, that of learning from people that have way more experience than us. Yeah.
for the older audiences that may be watching, you're not old, you know, 56.
No, yeah, no, it's so older than me, right? I mean, as I mentioned, I'm 29, and I say that all full of respect, right? Because I see your years of experience, and I think that I use the word old. I'm sorry about that. I mean, English is not my first language. What I'm trying to say is I'm really happy with your experience, and I'm really happy to enjoy the opportunity of making games with these people. I mean, it's really cool.
So we don't have a whole lot more time for the rest of the interview here. So I'm going to ask a question that I ask almost every other person that I interview. How does it feel having these ties with a company that is essentially synonymous with the creation of gaming, right? You've been in contact with Atari over the last month or so, 2 months or so, and I mean, has it been a month or 2 months? How long is it?
Yeah, I think it's been 2 months. I can check that. Let me see when I sent the first email to David.
But
Just
the question,
we can keep going. Yeah.
the ultimate question that I'm getting down to here is how does it feel knowing that you are in contact with one of the biggest names in video game history of all time and may at some point soon have the potential to publish a game with said company?
So it's been 2 months since I'm in contact with them, and it's amazing. As I mentioned, unfortunately, I did not have a Atari, so I've never played an Atari in my home or in my friend's house. I've played in museums, right? I mean, so those exhibitions that they have other consoles, so I've played that before, but I did not grow with Atari. But of course, I know the entire history, right? So and I'm a huge fan of what they did with game industry. And there are people here, as I mentioned, in Gamecraft that they grew playing Atari games. So they also share with us this love for Atari. But I mean, because of everything that they developed and having the opportunity of talking to them, it's amazing. I mean, the same thing that happened with Atari happened when I started talking to PlayStation. As I mentioned, when I was young, I grew up playing PlayStation. So having my game on PlayStation, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's a dream coming true. And of course, Atari is the same thing. I mean, they almost created the whole industry, right? So and knowing that they are still there, they're still making games, they're still having a console, publishing games, and they are living this dream until now. It's crazy, and being part of that, I mean, that's why we make games, right? I mean, the main thing is we make games for people to play them, and for people to play them, we have to find different channels, right? So when we find a cool channel like Atari to reach a different community and reach different players, that's why we do that. It's amazing.
There's one thing that I want to make a point on real quick. So the Atari that is around today is not the same Atari that was around in the 80s, 90s, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
However, and here's the real cool thing. The Atari today is still working with some of the most iconic legends of the original Atari era.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they even have Nolan Bushnell as There
The
was an
games they're releasing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Wade had did an interview recently and mentioned that they still have Nolan Bushnell coming through to kind of give advice for the company, which is great to have somebody who was there from, you know, that era to help out the company that is continuing the legacy. And of course, working with Jeff Minter, and of course, Atari is also working with other developers like Tony Barnes and Yanni Patinin and so on and so forth. These are all people who have a very impactful presence in the video game industry. And as a result, it's kind of like coming back full circle. It's blending those two generations together. Much like yourself, I didn't grow up with Atari. For me, Atari has been a journey, if anything, you know. And so I am going on almost 5 years in to my journey with Atari, and I have never had such a love for a genre or for a brand as I have.
The name, right? I think that Atari, the name, of course, that the company they had a lot of ups and downs, and they changed a lot through history. It's different people they are running now, but Atari, I mean, the name sticks there, and of course that it brings a lot of baggage with this name.
It's right in your face, and I think that's also why it makes it hard to just kill the brand.
Yeah,
but
true.
Anyways, so we are coming up on our last few minutes here for the interview. So I want to give you a chance to plug in your information, where people can find your games, maybe some final thoughts. The floor is yours. Feel free.
Awesome. So everybody can check our games on gamecraftstudios.com. And as I mentioned, we've released our own games for PC, PS4, mobile, and we worked with different companies that release games on everywhere. And you guys can check all of our games there. You can also check our Steam page. If you look for Gamecraft Studios Steam, you're gonna see all the games there. And hopefully, you guys will be able to play one of our games on Atari VCS. That's of course that's what I want. And as I mentioned, we're still discussing with them. It's not easy. I mean, the whole process. But I'm not sure if it's gonna be Vampire Hunters or it's gonna be a different game. But I'm pretty sure that one day you guys will be able to play one of our games, and hopefully Vampire Hunters in a very near future. And I want to thank. Of course, go ahead.
No, I just want to vote real quick for Aloysius Hunt and Vampire Hunters to be properly VCS. I'm just saying. Awesome. Just saying.
Okay.
Footage.
So a little thing. I mean, the older games, they're a little trickier for us to port. But because of the different things that we're discussing with them, so for us right now, what we really want is to have people playing our new games, because as I mentioned, it'll be a great way for them to help we develop better games as they participate in the development. But as I mentioned, once we launch one game there, I think that the whole process of launching more games and having everything of Gamecraft there will be easier. So you guys can definitely expect that. So keep following us. I mean, we have Twitter. You guys can find us on Gamecraft Studios on Twitter. So we post all of our news there. And I also want to thank you for everything that you've done for us. I mean, you found us, and you showed us this whole community, and you introduced me to David, and it's been really cool. As I mentioned, we make games because of that. So you've been really nice, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and
likewise,
and see that you really share this love too, right, for playing games and giving the developers a possibility of. I mean, to talk a little to the community. It's really cool. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank everybody that is it's listening to this, watching this video. And what I want to mention is we also have a Discord, Gamecraft Studios Discord. And also on our website, you can see our contact, so you can check our email.
I'm gonna plug all of that in the
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because as a developer and because of the way that I start developing games, I think that I really enjoy. I think I really love. I can say that word for that too. Helping other people that are developing and starting developing games. So if you have one question, I mean, I'm not sure where you're from. Maybe you are from a country that is not. It's like Brazil. I mean, it's still growing, and if I can help in any way, you can hit me a question. It will be a pleasure to talk and play your games too. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Well, Thiago, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Thank you for your enthusiasm. We welcome you here in the Atari community, and I look forward to playing more of your games here in the near future. And for those of you guys who are watching, my name is Kazan Azan with Crash Productions. I appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you guys in the next one.
See you guys.